Welcome, everybody. My name is Dustin Kircher. I'm with MHP Nation. I got my partners, Ben Driecer and Christian Agnellini. Today, we got an awesome guest. His name is Chase Louderback, and he's got a unique experience and has been doing this since 2012. So we're excited to bring Chase on and tell us about his experience. He owns mobile home park right now, and he's in escrow, sounds like, with a bunch more, which it would be interesting to hear on how he came about those and what he plans on doing with those. So we'd like to introduce Chase Louderback. Appreciate you coming on here, man, and look forward to learning your experience.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So
Yeah, man.
tell
Welcome,
me,
welcome.
you got started in 2012. What did that look like? What did you start doing in 2012?
So in 2012, I was doing mainly single families. I was in sophomore college, bought my first rental property, renovated it, and then started a flipping business essentially. So I have built up a portfolio of single family and did some flips. Um, a little bit prior to that, my family's had a park for almost 30 years. So even since I was a kid, I had experience with that from
Nice.
and then bring homes in and renovating the homes and selling them. But then in 2018, roughly, I started looking at multifamily and parks is what made sense to me. So I started to buy a few, and then over the span of the last 2 to 3 years, bought three parks, totaling about 150 lots, and then joined up some other partners this year, and now we have about 490 lots under contract.
Nice. So what made you originally decide to go into the MHP space?
When I was looking at multifamily, I saw how all the syndication splits were and how hard it was to find a deal. And even back then, that was 2018, 2019. So things
Mhm.
got even crazier there, but the numbers just didn't make sense. You're working a lot for a little, at least what everything looked like to me. So um, the other thing is I like the asset class a little bit better too and had experience with that. So that's kind of why I went that direction.
Nice, nice.
Can you walk us through your kind of first deal and how that came about, how you found it, how you sourced it?
Yeah. Well, my first deal, I made all the all the mistakes that you shouldn't do. So off market direct to seller is just I basically saw it on LoopNet as an expired listing,
Yeah.
followed back up with that seller, and I really didn't know a lot. I went through the boot camps and stuff like that, but just kind of um, did not get into the due diligence like I should have probably. And so after buying that one of the first things that happened was we had a $40,000 water line expense that we weren't expecting.
Oh
Oh, wow.
no.
So yeah, so I basically we just kind of invested using our own money for the first couple of deals because we wanted to learn and have those losses ourselves instead of with investors. And
Yeah.
then now we've kind of opened everything else up. So yeah, off market, seller finance, and just a couple hours away. So it was a nice deal.
How
Did you?
big of a park was it? And like public utilities, private utilities,
Yeah. So
what
this one,
would you have done for that one that you didn't do in retrospect too?
so in retrospect, that one is a 74 lot park, but it's only about 30% occupied. So it's got some value add, but we have to work through the county with some things.
Mm.
So I'm bringing some homes in and just, I mean, it was really like go. We spent $15,000 just in house demo and or home demo and another roughly 40 in tree trimming too. So it's quite a bit of capex just for one small park.
Wow.
Um, and then the main thing was it didn't ask any of the residents. It was kind of like the owner didn't want to talk about a lot, so we tried not to let the residents. Now we'll be like, how do you like living here? Do you have any water pressure issues? Do you have any drainage issues? We asked them a lot of questions too as we're going through communities, and I didn't do that back then
Yeah.
because that would have been something that would have came up quickly if I would have asked them when we were on site.
Are these park owned or tenant owned homes?
Everything's tenant owned.
Oh, tenant
Yeah.
owned. Okay, nice. And you mentioned so you're dealing with the county. Always love to hear those stories because it seems to be the number one issue that mobile home park owners have. So what are you dealing with on the county side?
So our park is actually city water septic. And the county has some of their own. I'm trying to think of how to phrase it. I guess water It's just with providing water just
Okay.
along where we are. So we're working with them to try to resolve that and get ourselves tapped on the city sewer. So we're kind of working as a partnership on that. Because we are septics right now, but in the long term, we'd like to convert to city sewers. So that's what we're trying to work on and then develop it out from there.
Got it.
So we went on to just purchase other parks instead.
Yeah, makes sense. So yeah, wait until you could get that hookup and then start building it out.
Correct. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, and just the way septic systems are with the setbacks, and it's almost like having less occupancy where we are right now. It makes it easier to put the infrastructure in. So that's why we're trying to get all of that done at once for both sides if possible.
And that park has 74 lots, you said?
Correct.
Is there like room for expansion there based on what you guys are doing, or is it like you're maxed out at 74 lots, or?
Well, so they're developed lots, but you're maxed out at that 74. Yeah.
Got it. And you took a lot of homes away when you first got it then?
No, they just weren't there. They were
They just weren't
actually
there.
the park had been let go for a while, so there was a lot of homes that were torn out and that need to be demoed. So yeah, so that's why we're at the occupancy we are now.
Nice. And how do you plan on funding that park to do the CapEx with the sewer lines?
So the laterals and stuff, and probably doing the majority part of the sewer on our end would be just through bank loans.
Okay.
And then or a combination of that and grant funding. So yeah.
Got it. And then so you moved over. So then while that's in play, then you went and bought another park. How soon after you bought your first one, did you buy your second one?
Yeah, that was about 2 years. I really kind of got caught in the weeds on the first one. So that was kind of a mistake too, as I know a lot of other people that got in and started buying a bunch, and that'd been the play to do. So that's about 2 years.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice, man. Nice.
Where is that park right now? Like, what's the current situation? Is it
Which one?
The first one that you bought?
First one's still the same thing. We're working through with the county on that. So we've added some lots. We have brought some homes in, but to get to the full occupancy, we've got to work through with them with some stuff. And the one catch I'll say with that one that we did right is we bought it as if we could never expand.
Okay.
So we bought the numbers in place as if we could never add any other lots.
Smart. So you bought it as the as-is value, not with a pro forma number.
No, nothing. Yeah.
That's good.
We see that all the time.
Back then you could buy them without even now they'll do 1 or 2 years pro forma with a lot rent increases. Back then I was able to buy it without having even just as is cap rate. Yeah.
Now every seller is trying to sell you on a 5-year pro forma.
Yep.
That's how multifamily was when I was getting into it. That's why it just didn't make sense.
Yeah. That's interesting. So so now your second one, you bought 2 years after that first one. Is that right? Okay.
Correct.
And where's that second one at right now? What was that park look like, and what are you guys doing to it?
That one's also in Virginia. It's that one's 43 lots, 40 are occupied, and it was just one where the owner hadn't raised rents and actually hadn't submetered the utilities. So when we bought it, some of the residents were using more on water and sewer charges than their lot rent was.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So that one wasn't quite as bad with occupancy and everything like that. So that was a straightforward one.
So you instituted a RUB system, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, we submetered, and then from there increased the lot rents too. Okay. And so so now we're not paying those utility charges anymore.
Nice. And did you have any fluctuation of tenants leaving or occupants leaving because of now changing? Now they got to pay for utilities, and then on top of that, with a pad increase.
So we kind of tiered it. So we did the submetering the first year, and then increased the lot rents the second year, and then that way they could also see some of the improvements we're doing in the community too, as opposed to just some people going and hit them with everything.
Yeah.
So the submeter was the first year, and they all kind of understand that you just pay for what you use, and that didn't really have any issues with tenants there.
Nice, that's good.
Yeah. So which part of Virginia was that?
What's that?
Which part of Virginia is that one in?
These are all Southwest Virginia.
All right, close to you.
Yeah, within 4 hours of me.
Gotcha. I had one in escrow for months in like outside of Martinsville, so like close to the border of North Carolina.
Yep.
And that one had a lot of issues. Unfortunately, we did not able to close on that one. And then little did I realize, actually, I was working with these guys on that one for a while. Little did we realize it had been foreclosed on months before we were even about to close on it. And yeah, it was kind of a nightmare.
What was wrong with it? Just liens or something on it, or?
There was a lot of septic issues with it. We found out after the fact, but it was mainly the communication with the seller was not there. We couldn't get really good financials, couldn't really get a lot of lending on it. And it was also pretty rural, what we found. So I don't know if you experienced anything. Are yours in a rural area, or would you say that they're somewhat populated?
The first, I would say all of them are pretty populated. So like when you're talking about, I know where you are, if you're Martinsville, Collinsville, that whole area, then we're not quite that rural.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, I mean, you have at least maybe 20,000 in population around you, 30,000 population around you?
Yes. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Is there a certain criteria that you're looking at when you're looking at parks? Like for us, it's a certain population, we want 50,000 preferably, population size. Is there anything like that you're looking at? What's your buy box kind of look like?
So my buy box has changed quite a bit in the past roughly year and a half, 2 years. I do look at the market. We look at the median home price like everybody else, but we will go rural. Like, so the guys I'm partners with now have one that's pretty rural. It'd be like what you're talking about, Christian. And so it really just like if we're not hitting our threshold on the market, then we want to make sure we're getting that made up in price. So it just changes how we underwrite everything.
Yeah.
And so you either have market risk or you have risk with the deal. And if you have both, then you just have to have a better price to account for everything. That's how we look at it.
Nice. And are you only looking for tenant-owned homes, or are you also looking at park-owned homes?
You stole the question right from me. I was just about that.
So other than the homes that we're in the process of selling, we don't own or rent any homes.
Okay.
If a community going in is park-owned homes, I mean, we look at it. Yeah. It's not something that's a deal breaker.
Nice.
And let me ask you this then. So when you underwrite it though, are you underwriting it mainly on the tenant-owned home being like converting it, or keeping it like that park-owned home?
So we'll generally look at it, at least how I've been doing it is, you just evaluate it based on the value of the lot rents and the shell value of the homes. If you're talking about, I mean, I've seen a couple markets where they're really weird and you can leave them as park-owned homes and the renter base is great where they don't tear it up. Then maybe we leave some of them there and kind of evaluate it in that regard too. But we don't capitalize any of the park-owned home income, if that makes sense. So it's got to make sense just off the lot rent with that and a shell value for the homes, and like a true shell value of what you can sell for cash. Not this house is worth 20,000 and you can only sell it for 10. So
right.
Yeah, those are the toughest ones, and you seem to find a lot of those too, because the seller is like thinking it's making X amount, but it's a mix of park-owned tenant home, and so they think that they're going to sell it for a multiple of what their income is. But yeah, like you said, you can't base it off of that park-owned home income. And the lending on that is tough too. We've had the lender that we've been working with on the show, and she's talked about that too. It's tough to get financing for it.
Yeah, there are lenders out there that will lend based off the park-owned home income, but you just have to make sure you have the right quality of home and park for that.
Yeah,
is a big thing. Yeah,
nice.
Have you used conventional financing for any of your deals, or have they all been seller financed?
So in the process right now, seller financed, tried to do a master lease option. That didn't work out. Conventional, and we're actually, the one that we're supposed to close here in a couple of weeks is a Fannie deal. So
nice.
A little bit of everything. Yeah.
Cool. So we've heard about your first, we heard about your second. What's going on with your third one that you got? Because you said there was three totaling about 140 units.
150, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So the third one, again, that was one kind of direct to seller. So people say direct mail doesn't work, but that was how we got that one.
Yep.
And that was 32 lots in the house, direct bill utilities. That was when we were talking about the risk thing. He had no financials. What he was able to show didn't line up. So that one was a rough one. We had to evict about 30% of the tenant base.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, tear about 15% of the homes out. And we have since started to get it turned around to where we have already turned over the majority of that 30%. And now we're just getting some homes brought in.
Nice. So on that one, did you just take the seller's gross income, stated gross or whatever, and then put basically a 45-50% expenditure on it?
I was a little bit more aggressive because it was direct billed, and the only utilities that you had the maintenance costs, and you only had the utilities as the trash there.
Okay.
So, I mean, he had some things to show for, but it was just all self-provided. So I actually had to talk with him on the phone for a couple hours, make a rent roll, get all the information with the tenants, and then try to determine what I could to see what he's actually bringing in. And then from there it was a risk because I didn't have bank statements or anything like that on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of dealing with one right now, the South Carolina. The seller's paperwork is all over the place. I get all the leases and I notice, the addresses are wrong, the amounts are wrong, the date of the lease is wrong, just all kinds of, nuances when we're doing the underwriting. But I like it because I kind of love like that forensic underwriting side of things.
Yeah.
But if you're not doing it, you could get screwed pretty badly, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these sellers, I mean, we've seen even some bigger operations that have owned quite a few parks. They may have had a lease from 10 years ago because they've been in the park that long, and they don't have an annual update or anything. They don't have a digital copy of their lease. So when they're trying to deliver all this stuff to do during due diligence, they only want to provide a couple. And that's fine as long as you know what you're going into and you don't have any other updated leases where it makes it to where you can't change it quickly after you take over. So this all goes back into that risk during due diligence thing we're talking about.
Yeah, nice. So, all right. So now that's your third park. Now you're in escrow on one right now that you're working through. What's the story behind that one?
So in escrow on actually, let's see, one's a 3-park portfolio, a 2-park portfolio, and then 2 separate parks. They're just separate sellers. And they were all just different ways. And I think the big credit there is just partnership. You're able to do more. So the first 3 or the first couple of years, I was just essentially doing everything majority myself, and then joining with some other guys, and that's what we're doing. Yeah.
What's your team look like now? You said a couple other guys. Do you have any acquisition people, or what's each one of your roles on the team?
So acquisitions is one of my main roles. And then we have a couple of operational assistants. So they just help handle the day-to-day, and they're really good at what they do with, tenant complaints and inquiries that go beyond. So we have community managers each property. So beyond that comes to them. And that allows us just to have more time for acquisitions and everything.
Nice. Did your partners have parks prior to? Did they own any? Oh, so they have experience in the space.
Yeah. So just kind of join teams. Yeah.
How did that come about? What for their team and for your perspective, like what kind of brought you guys together that you felt it would be like a synergistic fit?
I mean, I think the main thing was we're both in the same kind of area where we're looking to acquire. And we're in Virginia now, but we're both looking to expand. But we were just competing on a lot of deals. So, I mean, there's only so many of them, and there were several different occasions where we were both competing. So it just didn't really make sense. And operationally, we were able to expand and do more too. So we kind of complement each other with our strengths. One's extremely good at underwriting. Another one's very good at operations. So am I. And I have a lot of experience with construction background with the flipping. So, overseeing kind of projects and bringing in homes and that sort of thing. So just a nice.
So collaboration over competition is basically what you did there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I like it.
Yep. That's the way to do it. So
Yeah, and all
Yeah.
are closing at the same time, so you're going to have 7 new parks coming online
Well,
shortly.
luckily they're all kind of tapered. So we've got, the 2 weeks or the first 3, and then looking at probably about November for the 2 park, and then December for the last 2. So that way it's kind of like it allows us to get our operations up and running for each closing, and then on to the next one. So now we're actually in the pipeline of trying to find more, because everything's under contract now.
Yeah, it's
And
amazing.
you said that's a mix of like traditional financing, seller financing,
And agency debt.
and agency debt. Okay. What's going on with your standard financing bank loans? You said you got one that is a Fannie, right? What's kind of the terms on that? What are you looking at right now?
So Fannie's the agency one. We're either at 3 or 5 years IO. I got to double check on that. But your mid 6s with the way the treasuries have been lately for rates, and those are 30-year AM.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the prepayments are kind of rough. So it's a 10-year loan. What you pretty much have to eat a massive prepayment until year 5, and then it starts tearing down from there.
Yeah. So 10-year, mid 6s. What's the LTV on that?
This one's about 70%, 65-70%.
Okay. Nice. Any hoops that they're making you jump through so
A
far?
lot. Yeah. It's a lot harder it's a lot more to it than bank financing.
Yeah.
So.
And are you guys bringing on capital partners for these deals? Are you guys self-funding?
So all of these now, we are just doing friends and family. We haven't had any issues with that. So that's for these larger deals, the 5 million and up ones, that's essentially what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then the one that you're doing with the traditional financing, not with Fannie, what's that look like?
So that one, we're actually still we've gotten a lot of term sheets from banks, but we don't have like any one lender for that. So we're still in the process of getting, I believe, 2 more of our sheets back, and we're just going to compare everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
But that you're in 7s to 8s. It's a lot more 25-year AM, only a couple years IO as opposed to 3 to 5. So it's not quite as good, but less hoops to jump through.
Yeah. And then so now you're going through your due diligence on all these parks. What's your due diligence look like? How many days are you asking for? And what are the main things you're looking at right now that you've learned over the years?
So here, where I am, there's a notification period anyway, which is 60 days. So we do 60 days due diligence. And if you get a couple of these things under contract at the same time, you really need it. Our surveyor was like 4 weeks out, and to get all of that stuff and get it back in case there's any title issues or anything that needs to be revised, you need to have plenty of time. So that's kind of what that looks like on the. I'm gonna pull up my sheet really quick for the checklist. It's just, it depends on the deal. So some of these mom and pop deals, you just know you're not going to get as much on the financial side of things.
Yep.
So that kind of goes back to the risk of, is the market going to be all right? Is the park have any big, a lot of hair on the deal? And with what the seller is able to provide, is that a side of risk if you don't have the books like we're talking about? And if so, then does the price help mitigate that risk? So now our due diligence is we review all of those financials. Our checklist, as long as they're a somewhat savvy owner, is about 55 lines long in our Excel sheet. For our mom and pop owners, we try to cut that down to about 25. So
it's overwhelming them, and
and a lot of that stuff a more sophisticated owner might have that a mom and pop would, So
what do you do on the physical inspection side? Is there anything particular that you do now that you didn't do in the beginning? Like you said, you mentioned like checking water lines and stuff like that. But is there anything else that you do now on the physical side of the inspections?
No, not other than so the tenants is one. We check another big thing is we check with the electrical poles in the park. We want to see who owns those, if it's the park that actually owns them or the the electrical company. We're more diligent on if it's private utilities, like on your septic tests.
Mhm.
So here in Virginia, I mean, even just down to the county, it's going to change what you need for infill, and how strict the health department is. They all need a safe, adequate, and proper and SAP before you put a home on it, but what they require is some are a little bit pickier than others. So yeah, really diligent on the private utilities for sure. Definitely scoping the sewer lines to make sure they're not collapsed or anything. But you know, like we don't really ever have, unless there's something weird with electrical, we don't have electricians come out on site generally. Just our experience with that, we kind of know what to look for and what
Yeah.
it's going to cost to replace them. And let's see, I'm trying to think of anything else that's majorly different. We're just no,
No. Okay.
nothing else I can think of.
All right. And then so you had families that had experience in the mobile park space. Have you done anything, any education wise? If you said you did kind of like maybe the 3-day thing, was it with like Frank Rolfe? I think he's one of the big guys, right? Top 5
Yeah,
owners. Have you done
yeah.
anything else, any other trainings or education wise that you've been involved with?
Yeah, I did. So I have a friend that's pretty big in the space, Ryan Naris. I did
Okay.
mentorship with him for a few months.
Nice.
And then I like to go to the events too, MHI, SECO.
Mhm.
But really, after the boot camps are great and those things are great to buy your park. And if you really need something for like an emergency to sound on, like, Ryan, for example, he's great if I ever have an issue.
Yep.
Um, but you learn the most just by owning,
Yeah,
because you have to go
exactly.
through it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I get that question all the time. Like, how do you underwrite or how do you know how to, run a rental? It's like, I mean, you could read as much as you want, but until you're actually doing it, that's when your hands-on is probably the most important learning experience.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Nice.
Are there any red flags on deals? Like if you see a deal has a particular something, whether it's utilities, that you'll like run away if it's on a well or if it has a sewer system. Is
Yeah,
there something?
definitely don't want any more wells. We're buying one with a wastewater treatment plant.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so learned a lot with that, but the big plus with that one is it can be converted to city sewer. So learned a lot with that.
Good.
And then this isn't something that happens around where I am a lot, but I've heard other horror stories with people buying master metered electric or
Uh-huh.
something weird with gas. So we don't have anything that has gas lines. Master metered electric, it'd have to be a good deal, or just really have to have your due diligence on that. We look closely at the size of lots too. And then here we want to make sure we get the zoning letters, because some municipalities want to try to have a time frame on there where if you have a vacant lot, you have a certain time to fill it. So these are all important things that we want to make sure we know going in. If we're expecting to fill 20 lots and then it's been vacant 3 years and that's their code is that you can't do it for that, you want to know going in what your rights are.
Has that happened to you?
It has not. Well, so some of the ones we're buying now do have that, but for the most part, no, not currently. To where we've had issues with that time period. Yeah.
Yeah, it's smart that you're ahead of the game and know now what to look for so you don't get yourself in a pickle.
Yeah, it seems like it's more parks in like Northern Virginia that have that issue. So
Yeah, that the waste treatment, that's a scary one. What's been your experience so far and what you've learned about it?
definitely get an inspection. So there was a big repair needed with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just make sure you're not undercutting what you think you're going to need to operate it, because there's generally, you've got your operator costs and you've got your licensing costs. These are all just things we kind of learned from just really digging into it. Your maintenance costs, which can be the parts and actually cleaning out the system. And depending on what type of system you have, they can all be so dramatically different that you really gotta, if you have a park with that, then you gotta dig into that specific system, what that requires.
Nice. And you said that one though, you're converting to city sewer, right?
That's the plan.
Okay.
So we got quotes on that. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Nice. Go
No, I
ahead.
was going to say those have been like, from everything that we've heard and listened to, those can be the scariest, because it sounds like it can be a $500,000, $1 million bill to replace that. So it could kill a deal very quickly.
Yeah, and the catch is, that's funny, is we have a partner on that one where most of his parks that he owns are treatment plants. So
really?
it's funny, yeah, that people do that. One thing I would just essentially never touch unless you can immediately do would be lagoons. Like immediately tap on a city sewer. But you just really got to know what you're getting into with the treatment plants for sure. And I'm sure we'll have surprises too, but you just got to try to have some cushion for that.
Yeah.
Going back to your first park with because it's 30% occupied. When you're infilling these lots, so these pads, what's your plan with that? Are you going to do like the Century loans or any programs like that?
So with that, we're looking to do the cash program, so through 21st Mortgage.
Yeah.
So that's how we're doing that. Or in the past, which hasn't been very good the past couple of years, but we just brought in used homes and set them up and sold them.
Okay.
The catch with that is it's got to be new enough to where the buyer can get retail financing. So it's, got to be at least probably like 2000s or mid 90s in good shape to where they can get a loan on it.
Yeah. Nice. Very cool.
Have you been able to get from 21st Mortgage? Have they rewarded you
for the cash program?
Yeah.
So we're actually going through that right now. One of the parks that we are buying is it already has that in place, so we've got to just get it signed over to us too. But I have sold homes and communities that have had 21st Mortgage as the buyer or providing funding for the buyer. And that was actually not too bad of a process. That was good.
Are you making money on the sales or just breaking even? Or are you trying to make a little bit of a spread on the sale?
Generally just breaking even, maybe making a little something. So depending on the market, most of the time it's not really something we're looking to be profitable on. We just want to get the lot filled and have a really good resident there.
And do you have your dealer's license too?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And when did you get that along your journey?
I originally was going to try to do it a couple of years ago, but just got it a month or two ago. So yeah. Yeah. It just didn't make sense with the amount of lots we had to fill. There were other routes, like I was saying, going used homes and things like that we were doing. So until now we've got enough kind of going on that it makes sense to get a dealer's license and just buy everything like that. And I learned the hard way that used homes seem cheaper, but in my experience, by the time I brought it in, had to deal with all the headache by coordinating all the contractors individual for the footers, the hookups, the pad prep, the underpinning, the decks, and paying the actual fee for the home, and then also more than likely renovating the home. So now you got to coordinate more contractors. And then the sale price you get for it, you may as well have just bought a new home. You can have better financing options and not only dealing with the setup of the home, those contractors, as opposed to having to rehab a house potentially too from a distance.
Yeah, no, that's smart. Ben actually just took his test for his dealer's license.
For which state?
California.
Oh, California?
Yeah.
I'm sure that was rough.
The test was okay, but the application process that was just the first step, is to pass the test, and now they want to see a lot more stuff, and it's still not guaranteed, but hopefully in the next month or two.
Yeah. Well, the third park we got was in West Virginia, and they want you to have like a contractor's license too for the setup and everything. So you have like almost two separate licenses.
Oh wow.
I don't have my dealer's license in West Virginia, but that's definitely more entailed with that one. So
Yeah. We just had a guest who owns in Ohio or Iowa.
Iowa.
And he said all they had to do was just submit a fee and that got him his license.
Really?
Yeah, some of the states are like that. Yep.
So varies state by state, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dramatically.
Yeah. So doing the experience you got now with the 3 parks plus the bunch that you got in escrow and now teaming up with partners, what would you say you would go back and do a little bit differently if you had the chance?
I mean, if I had all the knowledge that I do now, then I would probably not limit myself as much. I kept thinking about what could I buy. And so even that impacted even my outreach. I was reaching out to parks that either I felt that I could buy or I would bring to somebody else and already assume that I was giving up a lot of the deal. Whereas now it's just having partners and knowing that we can raise the money or just have the money makes a big difference with how fast you can grow and what you can do.
Nice. Very cool.
You
And
guys have goals with the partnership for growth?
What's that?
You guys have some like growth goals like over the next few years, or like what you guys want to achieve?
Well, my goal for this year was to be at 500 lots, and so we'll see how that shakes out with what I've got under contract. And so between all the partners, we're at right at about 850 lots as is before we close anything. So yeah, we got to set some new goals.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
man. Awesome.
So what would you say is obviously partnering up and each one of you guys having a certain task, would you say that's the most important thing that's allowed the growth, or what would you say is the biggest thing so far that you guys are focused on that is creating the growth that you guys have right now?
I mean, I can't say it's any one thing. I think it's the complementary abilities of each partner. I also think the biggest thing on my end, just that I'm seeing come through, is consistency. So let's see, a couple of these deals, we've been talking to the owners for years. It's not like I just called them one time or anything like that. So it's been just being consistent. And then same with other deals that have been brought our way. It's not like I've talked to a broker once or gone to an event once. I'm going everything I can and also talking and following up with the brokers as much as I can. And also just meeting a bunch of just kind of not as in your face brokers, but they still deal a lot in mobile home parks. Those are some of the best relationships.
Yeah. Nice. Very cool.
If you were to start all over, or tell somebody who's wanting to get into this industry, what would you recommend? And what advice can you give to like a newcomer into the space?
Was that one of the questions on the email? I should probably thought about that more.
I don't think so, but maybe.
If I was doing it all over, it really just depends what my skill set would be, but I would encourage them to look bigger as opposed to smaller. So a lot of these smaller parks, there's just a lot of headache. I'm saying anything under 50 lots, really under 75 lots. It's better if you could have a smaller piece of something bigger than it is for you to have a bigger piece of something smaller. And it's kind of like doing the math on owning 15% of a $5 million deal that you can add $5 million worth of value to versus owning 50% of a $500,000 deal that you can double. I mean, you made $250,000 on the smaller deal, but 15% of the 5 millions, what is that? 750,000, something like that. Does that sound right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're probably doing less work with the other one. Not that this is about being easy, but you have other partners to help you, as opposed to the other one, you're doing the majority of the work. Great to get the experience, but that's just kind of what I found is thought I had to do everything, be everything, own everything, as opposed to working together has made a bigger difference.
Nice. So we've been here for almost 45 minutes. Appreciate you coming in here, Chase. We do have a couple more questions, but before we get to that, like how can people reach out to you? What are you looking for? If you want to share all that.
I mean, anybody can reach out to me on Facebook. My email is chase@lioncrestinvestments.com, which you're welcome to share that email that we've
Cool.
we've been going back and forth on. And I mean, I don't really have anything to sell. We're looking to buy more parks, Virginia and surrounding states, and anything over 50 lots, value add. Just no lagoons or treatment plants unless I can immediately tap on the city sewer. So
Very
yeah.
cool. Are you looking to would you be open to partnering with people, JVing with others? Or you just kind of about
yeah, so I mean, we definitely prefer to have some sort of a fee structure, but if it's something where, you know, a JV or something like that, then definitely we'll look at that.
cool. All right. So last questions before we get going here. It's kind of a two-parter. What is the biggest win you've had so far? And what would you say is the biggest horror story you've had so far in your journey?
Biggest win. I think that's tricky. I just I don't really, I guess I'm realizing I don't really celebrate the wins that much. I just try to focus on the next thing to do.
Awesome.
So biggest wins, probably we're working on some partnerships where new homes are getting brought in. And between that and the new partnerships with these things in escrow, that's the biggest ones I can think of off the top of my head.
Very cool.
Biggest horror story is, again, the first deal I've had. I'll have two horror stories. One is the first deal I had, which was the $40,000 unexpected expense where we had to replace quite a bit of water line and fix that. And the second is we had to evict a tenant. And it was a very interesting situation that she had like 15 cats in her home that we didn't know about. They were a tenant when we bought the park.
Yeah.
And for about a month and a half, we were kind of held hostage between her and her attorney. She wasn't able to pay rent from us, but she was able to get an attorney, and to where she was able to come back on park property just to feed her cats because she was evicted from the home, but
Yeah.
as the well-being of the cat. So lesson learned: when the police are there and you're there with the police and they're evicting a tenant, make sure they get all their animals out, and not just the ones they say are in there, but all of them actually in there. So,
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Chase, we appreciate your time and sharing your experience and your knowledge. And we look forward to seeing the growth of you and your team. And hopefully, you know, we can do a deal together and work alongside with you.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
So
Nice to meet you guys.
appreciate it, Chase.
Thanks so much.